Sometimes there is definitely an uphill battle, but you know that it's not always going uphill.
When most kids dream about ice cream, they're thinking about the flavor. When today's guest was a child in Germany, she was thinking about the business model, specifically how to sell it so she could master the perfect balance of work and play. That early spark led Dr. Christiane Schroeter across the ocean to become a professor of innovation and entrepreneurship. But she quickly realized that in the world of high-stakes business, we often get so obsessed with the big goal that we trip over the daily reality. Today, she's sharing the secret behind her trademarked Petite Practice. It's a framework that proves your massive breakthroughs don't come from giant leaps. They come from the small, consistent habits that keep you sane. We're diving into why actionable progress beats perfect strategy every time, how to pivot your brand without losing your identity, and the art of setting boundaries so your business serves your family, not the other way around. If you're ready to stop overthinking and start doing, then this episode is for you. As always, if you found value from this content, please like and subscribe. All right, Christiane Schroeter, welcome to Beyond Fulfillment.
Thanks so much for having me, audience. I'm really excited to be here today.
Yes, we are excited to have you. So Christiane, could you just walk us through your backstory and how you became an entrepreneur?
Yeah, love it. Thank you so much. I think for me, it started early on in childhood. I always was passionate about doing something creative and starting a business to make money. Fun story, audience. When I was a child, I lived in Germany. You can hear that in my beautiful accent. And I thought, how cool would it be to be running and operating and selling ice cream? Because then I would actually have half the year off. During the summer, I would sell ice cream. During the winter, I would have the half time off. And of course, my parents were like, but that doesn't work because you don't make any money. But as a child, it sounded pretty brilliant. Selling something you're passionate about and doing only half of year of work. It's pretty much an entrepreneurial win-win, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. So you're already thinking about how to leverage your time and have time off, right?
Yeah.
Tell us more about that and how you became an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so I want to I use this story to kind of jump into what's really important when I work with entrepreneurs today. And I'm going to take a really big jump right now. So the passion and the time is really what I frequently emphasize with entrepreneurs that I work with. So I'm a full-time professor at the university. I do teach innovation entrepreneurship to college students, to high school students, but then, of course, also to clients that work with me one-on-one and really scaling their business. Usually they're stuck, overwhelmed. They are doing great on paper, but they are not doing great in their mindset. And that's really where I come in. I also work as a keynote speaker, and I talk exactly about my trademark on the stage that I also share with my clients and with my students as well. So I have a trademark on something that's called Petite Practice, taking small, petite steps to reach your big goals. And that's really, if you think back about being a child and selling ice cream, that's really back then what I took. I'm now in the United States. I work in California, and I took a lot of small steps to get here, but I reached my big goal, and I'm super happy where I'm at today.
Okay. All right. And so you talk about those childhood dreams of how cool it would be to have a business. And the first thought was selling ice cream. And of course, you evolved into all the way up into what you're doing now. I mean, how did your upbringing and your previous experiences shape the way that you built your business?
Mm. Yeah, there's kind of like two important things. And I also emphasize that to all the business owners and entrepreneurs that listen to this right now. Number one, I always read a lot of books. And I think that's really what everybody could be doing to further their mindset and get out of being overwhelmed, because you're learning from the best on paper. You don't spend time with electronics all day, but at the same time, it's sometimes really needed to get out of this mode of feeling stuck because you're learning from the best. So I always read a lot of books. And I think that was something from early on, from being a child, that really helped me. About a book per week is really where I would set my reading scale. And I love talking about books too. So audience, if you have any like I feel stuck, I don't know what to read next, just reach out to me and I would love to help you. So that's like the number one thing. The number two thing is I always felt being a listener so much more important than being somebody that just kind of talks. So I really tune in on my audience and I really try to figure out who they are, where they're from, and who they want to be, right? So this past, present, and future. And that I think is really what always set me apart as a child, that I really had a lot of empathy, but I also had the ability to really figure out, is there something beneath that layer of what I see right now? Is there maybe even more there that I kind of can trigger out a little bit? And I love doing that.
Okay. So you were reading a book a week even
Mhm.
since childhood?
Yeah, that's really what it comes down to.
Okay. All right. And so when did you come to the United States?
Mhm. So I came to the United States just before I finished my master's degree in Germany. I knew that finishing my master's degree would lead to job applications, and that would make my travel probably very minimal. So I started using my side hustle that I've been doing all along. So I've been working as a merchandising assistant for some large scale companies all along during while I went to college. And I thought, well, here's my marketing, my sales experience, but I feel I need to really go to the global scale with those skills and figure out what else I can do. Started applying to various master's programs, and then from there to PhD programs and earned my doctorate degree at Purdue University. And then from there, I went to work as an assistant and then associate and then full professor. So you can kind of see that sometimes you are at that intersection, at that fork in the road where, like, well, if I take that one route, I know I will never be able to fulfill the dream of going abroad, of traveling, of maybe seeing what else is out there. And that's really what happened for me. When I came to the United States, I felt like I'm really glad I took that big leap because I knew that was the next best step. Very scary because I didn't know anybody when I came here. I had no family, no friends, no nobody. I had a piece of paper with the name of the international student coordinator of the university on there. But I think that's who I am. I'm really a risk taker. If I know that has been on my bucket list, I am the person that will go for it and try to achieve it.
Okay. Wow. So you took a big leap coming to the US, didn't
Mhm.
know anybody. You started a new life here and you began working as a professor, and then you still had your side hustle, which
Mhm.
you've had all along. And then talk about how you developed like the speaking and you've written 4 books also too. We'll get into that, the speaking
Mhm.
and the writing and the coaching career. How did that all develop?
I think it came from realizing that people don't learn all in one way. Sometimes we are good listeners, sometimes we like to read a lot, and sometimes we just like to watch, right? And some people learn best when they're actually kinesthetic learners, so they like to experience it themselves. Being a professor really means that you understand that students learn in different ways. So they all get to the end result, but they don't all go through the exact same funnel. They go and take different paths to get there. So I realized, I can't just stand here and click through slides. I can't just ask them write an essay because not everybody is a good essay writer. So I started developing my books, and the books are really approaching learning from 4 different angles, right? So in my books, you have barcodes where you can actually listen to my podcast episodes. There are also interactive exercises like word searches where you test your own knowledge of the sales process or the marketing funnel. And then, of course, there are also pages where you can write about yourself and really reflect what's important to me. What is something I would tell myself if I were to think about myself 5 years ago? What's a letter to myself, and what would I tell myself? So I feel that if you think about life and learning as a little variety of things, you really approach learning from the best angle because I'm really opening it up and I'm saying, I'm here for you and meet me where you are, and I'm willing to take you then to that next level.
Okay. So it sounds like your work as a professor really opened up your mind to the different way people learn and these different mediums you could use to get your message out, whether it be the books, the speaking, you mentioned your podcast, all these different avenues of getting the information out. Is that fair to say?
That's very fair and very brilliant to say.
Okay. All right. And as you're getting out there, right? Because again, right, you read a lot, you went to school, you became a professor, you're starting out in a new country, which is very scary. And then on top of that, you're launching this business in terms of the speaking and the writing. I mean, what type of challenges did you face early on?
Yeah, so at the beginning, you're sometimes really wondering, like, why am I doing this? I already have a full-time job, right? But I think there's only so much you can do with regard to teaching innovation and entrepreneurship. I always say you actually have to practice what you teach in the classroom as well. So, how can you be a successful professor if you don't run your own business? How can you share with students how it feels like to actually experience a failure or to hire employees or to really be a good team leader if you don't do this yourself? It's textbook knowledge versus applied knowledge. And I'm very much a practical applicant myself of my knowledge. I share with my students if something didn't work out in my business, or if I dropped the ball on something for them because I was busy dealing with clients or traveling to a speaking engagement. And I think being honest and being vulnerable and being authentic is really what they appreciate. Because at the end of the day, we're not just one lane people. We have so many different things that we all do. And I always encourage my clients, don't just think of yourself as this one-dimensional person. There's so much more you can do. But why don't you start tapping into all these different interests? Because you will be surprised. It actually, at the end of the day, complements each other. So I'm a better speaker because I teach, and I'm a better teacher because I speak.
Okay. All right. And so you mentioned, right, like the challenges, the failures, and then, but yet you're very big on being open and honest and vulnerable. And love that too, because that's one of the things we hear about people's criticism, even of learning business in college is like, well, you're not learning from someone that's actually running a business. And so you had that awareness to say, look, if I'm going to teach this, then I need to actually be doing it. So in those early years when you're just getting out there and launching and you're going through some of these failures, was there ever a point in time where you considered giving up?
So many times. So many times. It definitely, I would say, pivots are points of strength, not weakness. But sometimes those pivots are pretty hard. When you get to the point, you're like, oh, I guess I could keep going on, but I don't think this is going anywhere. And then maybe you need to pivot. And just last year, for instance, right? So my podcast is a really big feeder in terms of really bringing people into my email funnel, into my ecosystem. So last year, I decided to rotate that and really put YouTube on the top and changing my brand from what was my podcast brand to Dr. Christiane. And that's a really big step. First of all, of course, it's putting my title on there. But second of all, some people sometimes struggle with my name. And I do this very intentional because I think this is my name. This is who I am, right? This is my business. But what that all entails to change a business name and really making sure that everything aligns under this new umbrella is absolutely tremendous. So at the beginning, I was very hesitant. I was like, oh no, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. But then I was like, it really doesn't make any sense. Because at the end of the day, if somebody does business with me, it's with Dr. Christiane. And that's really who I want to be known as. So it's
Let me tell you what actually happens with the knowledge that runs your business. Someone spends a week writing an SOP, it goes in a binder, the binder goes on a shelf, and when a new hire has a question, they find the person who knows and they ask them. That's tribal knowledge. It's valuable and it walks out the door every time someone leaves. With Quickly Doc, you just film your experts doing the job. It takes 5 minutes. Quickly Doc turns that into a professional, searchable documentation that your team can pull up right from their phone. So when someone searches, how do I reset the controller? There's the answer. straight from the person who actually knows. Film it once, reference it forever. Go to quicklydoc.com/beyond for your free pilot and stop losing what your best people know.
Sometimes there is definitely an uphill battle, but you know that it's not always going uphill. There's going to be the point where you pause on the top and you're like, okay, I did this. This actually felt really good.
Okay. I mean, can you talk too about a pivot where like a really important time where you had to switch things up and it led to a breakthrough?
Oh, for sure. Just that branding that I just talked about, that was good.
Okay.
Because I think when I applied to be a TEDx speaker, that completely set me apart from a lot of the other speakers right there, because it immediately established me as like, all right, I'm not just here to share something about myself. I'm actually here to share an idea worth sharing that really moves momentum in the audience. I think that frequently people really underestimate of like what it really takes to come up with something like a storyline where there is a beginning and a middle and an end, and that especially when you run a business too, that why is just so important. So when you are at a point where you feel you need that big breakthrough, just come back to that why and revisit that. Why are we actually doing this? Why are you doing this? Is that really something that you feel is important to you yourself, your unique value? Does it come through in your why? And if so, then keep doing what you're doing. Otherwise, maybe we need to tweak things a little bit.
Okay. All right. And so let's talk about like I guess your patented program that you teach, Petite Practice.
Mhm.
Right. So you're talking about taking small steps to achieve big goals. Can you just expand on like how you came up with that and what it really means to you?
Beautiful. Yeah, to me, it really means that all of us can figure out how to write down big goals. We are all dreamers deep down. We can come up with big goals, big priorities. I mean, here we are in January and everybody has New Year's resolutions, and that's amazing. And most people don't even need a strategy, right? But when I meet with people, I'm like, so tell me a little bit about yourself. What's really going on? And they have great strategies and have big goals. But the problem is to connect the bridge between those two. How can I get for my strategy? How can I use it as a vehicle to reach that big goal? So my work really comes in translating the big goal into small steps that you can take even on the days when there is a lot of pressure to really feel you're accomplishing a progress that sticks. And that's where the petite practice comes in. So you're taking small steps consistently to build momentum to then eventually reach that big goal. And it's petite, small, but it's also a practice because you don't know that every step you take is going to be brilliant. There might be some days you're taking a small step and you're like, oh, I don't know about that, but it's okay. It was a small step. So next day, try something a little bit different, but you have to keep up that consistent momentum.
Okay. And how did you develop that too throughout
I
your
think that
career?
beautiful. I think that all my life I used that same concept for myself. When I wrote my dissertation, I wrote 2 pages per day, 2 pages per day. And I accomplished my PhD in 5 years. And when I graduated, there were other people that were still doing their literature review and they had started with me because they were just thinking only about the big goal about the PhD, the doctorate degree at the end. And I just thought, I'm just going to write 2 pages per day, 2 pages per day. I'm just going to keep sitting down every day. And when I got those 2 pages done, I can do something else. But I got to write those 2 pages per day. And that's how I graduated. And that's just one example. So if you think you have a big goal, whether that's a degree, a promotion, bringing your business to the next level, there's always a way to get there, but you have to do it consistently. And most importantly, take that first step today.
Okay. And given some of the challenges you faced early on, and then up until where you are today, where, like you said, you have a top 1% ranked podcast, you're a keynote speaker, you've done a TEDx talk, you have a coaching practice, you're still a professor. Given the success you've experienced, was there a particular moment where everything just started to click and the trajectory really took off?
Yes, for sure. They all have 24 hours in the day. And there was a moment when I realized that some things I had been really worried about just weren't that important anymore. Where like, you know what? At the end of the day, I don't even know why I got so bent out of shape over this. And you just have to let go of those things. And some other things that are really important to you, where you actually see the traction in your business, you're going to keep doing those. But really, really importantly, audience, you have to take maybe even a full day at the beginning of each month and sit down and reflect on that, because otherwise you're not going to come to this realization. So for me, doing all these different, I call them opportunities, right? They all come with obstacles, but I have to sit down and figure out, all right, so for me to be a TEDx speaker, what does it mean in my day-to-day life? All right, so for me to be a good mom, what does it mean in my day-to-day life? So I have to really sit down and figure out what is it that I can do and what is it that I'm just not going to be able to, and I have to say no to. So you have to create those boundaries, because otherwise you're just going to drive yourself crazy, right? So that is really a point that I had to do. I had to really sit down and say yes to this, absolutely no to that one. This one may be back burner, but it's just not going to work right now.
Love that. Okay. And Christiana, after everything that you've been through and getting this far, what's one piece of advice that you would give to someone that's just starting out on their entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, just start looking at your own progress. You have to praise your own progress. If you think about a book, right, and you just pick up a really big book, let's say you're on page 1 or maybe 10 or something, don't compare your page 1 or page 10 to somebody's page 100, which frequently leads to this procrastination and this I'm feeling stuck, I'm feeling overwhelmed. So if you're at the beginning of the book, you have to keep turning the pages, you have to do the work, because nobody that's on page 100 and has been operating a business for 10 years got there quickly. They didn't just flip it and they say, all right, I'm there. This is not what happens. Everybody has to go through the hard work to get there and take those small steps. So if you're just starting out, just keep plugging along, consistent, petite practice steps, and high five yourself. Kind of think, all right, so this week I did that. Okay, this month I did that. Over this last 6 months, I did that. So really write down and document your progress and share it with somebody as well. And you'll be amazed in what you accomplish. But that is the most important thing. Don't compare your day 1 to somebody's day 1,000, right? So if I think about myself, really, that's frequently what can lead to this inability to keep moving, because you feel, oh, I'm never going to get there. Of course you will. You just have to keep going.
Reminds me another quote I love. It's no one gets to skip the messy middle, right?
Beautiful. That's
Um,
the middle of the book. You have to keep reading.
yeah, keep turning the page. Okay, and so after everything, what would you say has been the most fulfilling part of your journey?
I think having children, you know, it's great to coach clients. It's great to coach students. It's great to coach, people I initially don't know at all how they came in my life. Maybe they came through my podcast, through my emails, through my YouTube channel. But really seeing that my children are actually picking up some of the messages that I'm sharing and looking at me as a role model, that's tremendously fulfilling. And to all parents out there, that's definitely like the one moment where like, oh my gosh, this is hard. But at the end of the day, I think frequently we forget about that, right? We want to be good leaders. We want to be, running successful businesses, and especially if you operate a business yourself, to spend more time with your family. You need to remind yourself that that's the reason why you're doing this. Because I frequently see this with my clients. They're like, yeah, I started my own business to spend more time with my family. And then we go through the calendar and it's like, wow, well, hold on. How does the family come in? Do you have client meetings with them? Because I don't really see that right now. So you need to remind yourself at the end of the day, if that's your goal to spend more time with your family, I love it, but you actually need to do that as well. And if it takes scheduling date times with your children and your husband on your calendar, I do that, right? That's awesome. Yeah, I do, I do like date night, date time, coffee breaks. I call it blondie time because my daughters have blonde hair and I can schedule a little blondie time with my girls. And yeah, I think that's so important because otherwise you just get swept away in the day-to-day operation and you look back and your children are moving out of the house. You're like, whoa, what has happened, right? So don't do that. That's the most important leadership lesson. You have to put yourself forefront, take care of yourself so you can be a really good leader in your day-to-day life.
Love that. Okay. And Christiane, if people are hearing this and they want to learn more about your coaching practice or the other things you do or how they can get in touch with you, what's the best way that people can reach out to you online?
Yeah, check out my YouTube channel. It's Dr. Christiane. Of course, tune into my podcast, The Happy Healthy Hustle. Repeat that a few times to really get a good tongue twister out of that too. And then, of course, check out my website, drchristiane.com, to see my podcast, my books, and speaking engagements where I'm currently at.
Okay. All right. We will link all that in the show notes for everyone.
Thank
All
you.
right. Well, Christiane, thank you so much for taking the time to be here and sharing all this valuable wisdom from your journey with our listeners. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.